She wasn't the infamous Bonnie, but Blanche Barrow lived through the same gunfire and chaos as part of Bonnie and Clyde's gang. This photo, taken in 1933, shows the exact moment she was dragged into custody after a violent shootout in Missouri. Half blinded by glass shards, terrified yet defiant, Blanche's capture symbolized the beginning of the end for the Barrow gang. The image freezes a rare instant where myth met reality. Behind the legend of glamour and rebellion was a desperate woman, broken and cornered by the law. Imagine seeing this billboard in the 1950s. Your own home with a swimming pool, only $9,800. In post-war America, dreams were being sold cheap, at least compared to today. Suburbs like Maryvale promised luxury, family life, and status at a price the average worker could reach. The smiling woman in a swimsuit wasn't just advertising a house. She was selling the American dream. What feels like a fantasy today was once marketed as everyday life. Proof of how much the meaning of prosperity has changed. When Generals Eisenhower, Patton, and Bradley entered Ordruff in April 1945, they were confronted with horror beyond imagination. Here, survivors demonstrated the exact torture devices the SS had used on them, while America's top commanders looked on in stunned silence. Eisenhower would later insist that every atrocity be documented, fearing a day when people might deny it ever happened. This moment wasn't just military history. It was a reckoning with humanity's darkest depths. Standing among the liberated, these generals bore witness so the world could never forget the true cost of unchecked hate. In 1954, Marilyn Monroe, already an icon of beauty and glamour, revealed a side of herself the world rarely saw. She held a framed portrait of Abraham Lincoln, the president she called her father figure. Orphaned of stability and longing for guidance, Monroe saw in Lincoln the strength and dignity she wished she had known in her own life. Behind the dazzling smile was a woman searching for roots, clinging to the image of a man who embodied resilience. This photograph captures a haunting truth. Even the brightest stars often shine while carrying the deepest shadows. September 11th, 2001, a day that split history into before and after. While the world froze in horror, this girl sat with her 16th birthday cake, caught between personal joy and national tragedy. Behind her, the television broadcast the collapse of the Twin Towers, flames and smoke filling the screen. Her uneasy expression tells a story millions of Americans remember, a moment when innocence was shattered in real time. This haunting photograph captures the surreal collision of ordinary life with extraordinary catastrophe. The day when birthdays, school mornings, and daily routines were forever marked by grief and remembrance. At first glance, it looks innocent, a young boy savoring an ice cream on a quiet beach. But look closer. He's perched on a sea mine, a weapon of war capable of obliterating everything around it. Captured in Kent, England, in 1940, this haunting photo embodies the surreal clash between childhood innocence and the deadly shadow of World War II. For the boy, it's just a place to sit. For history, it's a chilling reminder of how war seeped into every corner of life. This single image asks, how close did innocence come to destruction that day? August 6, 1945, at 8:15 a.m., the world changed forever. Over the city of Hiroshima, a single bomb, nicknamed Little Boy, unleashed destruction on a scale humanity had never witnessed. In seconds, the sky became fire, the earth became ash, and tens of thousands of lives were erased. By the end, an estimated 135,000 souls were gone, men, women, and children, lost in a blinding flash of power that could end civilization itself. This haunting image of the mushroom cloud is not just history. It's a warning, a question for all of us. What price are we willing to pay for war? In 1936, Lizzie Magie sat proudly with her invention, a game she called the landlord's game, later known as Monopoly. But her vision wasn't about fun or fortune. It was a warning. Meiji created the prototype to expose the dangers of unchecked land speculation, showing how greed and monopoly could crush the working class. Yet history twisted her idea. Her warning became one of the world's most popular board games, ironically celebrated for the very excesses she tried to criticize. This photo reminds us, even the simplest games can hold powerful lessons about money, power, and the world we live in. On January 19, 1937, the small town of Sneedville, Tennessee, witnessed a marriage that shocked the nation. Charlie Johns, just 22, stood beside his bride, Eunice Winstead, only 9 years old. The ceremony was performed by a Baptist preacher for the sum of $1, a transaction that exposed how weak marriage laws truly were at the time. Newspapers spread the story, sparking outrage and forcing lawmakers in Tennessee to reconsider child marriage statutes. This haunting image is not just a photograph. It is evidence of a dark reality where innocence was signed away under the guise of legality. He knew he was going to die, and yet he faced it with unshakable dignity. This is Benjamin Guggenheim, the millionaire aboard the Titanic in 1912. When chaos erupted and lifeboats filled, he refused to take a seat. Instead, he dressed in his finest evening clothes and declared, "We are dressed in our best, and we are prepared to go down like gentlemen." Witnesses later recalled his final message, "Tell my wife I played the game straight to the end." No woman was left behind because Ben Guggenheim was a coward. His courage remains one of Titanic's most haunting legacies. Only 5 years after the end of slavery, history was made in the halls of American power. This is Hiram Revels of Mississippi, the first African-American to serve in the United States Senate. In 1870, as the nation was still bleeding from the Civil War, his very presence challenged centuries of oppression and stunned those who once believed freedom would never come. Revels spoke not only for Mississippi, but for millions whose voices had been silenced. His seat in the Senate became a symbol of resilience, hope, and a bold reminder that progress, though fragile, was unstoppable. They were father and son, chained, humiliated, and sentenced to death for nothing more than their faith. This haunting photograph from 1896 shows Varka and his 12-year-old son Ruhollah moments before execution in Tehran. Their only crime, being followers of the Baha'i faith, a minority persecuted under Qajar rule. Witnesses say that even as they faced death, neither renounced their beliefs. Instead, they held firm, turning their final breaths into a silent act of defiance. This image is not just history. It's a chilling reminder of how intolerance tries to break the human spirit, but courage refuses to bend. On April 20th, 1972, astronaut Charles Duke, just 36 years old, the youngest man to ever walk on the moon, left behind something profoundly human. Not science equipment, not a flag, but a family portrait. Sealed in plastic, the photo showed Duke with his wife and 2 sons, smiling together on Earth. He placed it gently on the lunar soil during Apollo 16, saying later it was his way of leaving a piece of his heart on another world. That photo still rests there today, untouched, a silent reminder that even in humanity's greatest leap, we carried love with us. Exhausted and battle-worn, a soldier from Patton's Third Army collapses in 1945 on the luxurious bed where Nazi leader Hermann Göring once slept. A striking image of irony and justice that transforms a stolen symbol of power into a moment of human rest, marking not only the downfall of a tyrant, but also the quiet triumph of those who fought to end his reign. In 1932, a man set out on a journey so daring it defied reason. Oscar Speck left Germany in a kayak, determined to paddle across rivers, seas, and continents. For 7 years he braved storms, hunger, and isolation, covering nearly 50,000 kilometers until finally reaching Australia. But history had shifted in his absence. Just weeks before his arrival, Germany invaded Poland and World War II erupted. Instead of being celebrated as a hero, Speck was arrested as an enemy alien and spent the entire war confined in a POW camp. His triumph instantly transformed into tragedy. On May 9, 1980, a freighter called Summit Venture slammed into Florida's Sunshine Skyway Bridge, sending a massive section of the roadway crashing into the bay and dozens of cars plunging with it. In this chilling photo, Richard Hornbuckle's car sits just inches from the jagged edge, seconds from certain death. He had slammed the brakes at the very last moment, stopping where the bridge simply no longer existed. Behind him, rescue crews rushed to control the chaos. But his car became the haunting image of survival by pure chance, a split-second decision that separated life from a 150-foot fall into tragedy. This haunting image from 1846 is the oldest known photograph of the White House, capturing the seat of American power just decades after it was rebuilt from the ashes of the War of 1812. Silent and imposing, the residence stood as both a symbol of resilience and a reminder of fragility, holding within its walls the weight of a young nation's triumphs and scars. Looking at it now, stripped of modern guards, fences, and security, it feels eerily exposed, like a ghostly window into a time when the future of the United States was still uncertain and the fate of democracy was anything but secure. In the 1950s, long before viral internet challenges, young people found thrill in a bizarre craze known as phone booth stuffing, cramming as many bodies as possible into a single telephone booth. What began as a silly college stunt quickly spread worldwide, turning into a competitive fad with records climbing to an astonishing 25 people squeezed into one booth. This photograph captures the absurdity and laughter of the era, a strange yet unforgettable moment in pop culture history that reminds us just how far people will go in the name of fun, chaos, and bragging rights. In the 1940s, before advanced formulas and long-lasting claims, cosmetic companies relied on unusual experiments to prove the strength of their products. This photo shows a lab technician grinning as he observes a couple kissing. His job was to measure just how well lipstick held up under the ultimate test of durability. Equal parts awkward and amusing, it's a glimpse into the quirky, sometimes bizarre world of vintage advertising science, where proving a product's worth meant putting intimacy under the microscope.